Using Live's warping functionality, you can fix loops that have imperfections, and you can also create rhythmic variations in loops. I've got a set of loops here, and these loops are included in this course. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 of them to my Live set. This drum loop I'm going to use to show you some rhythmic imperfections, but I'm going to play it along with this Wurlitzer loop so you can hear exactly what's wrong. So what's happening here is that this empty space at the end of my loop is causing the loop to be out of time. Now when you add a loop to a Live set, the beginning and end warp markers are created automatically. Now I'm going to go ahead and drag this end warp marker up here, and I'm going to kind of visually look for where I want to place the warp marker by looking at the individual hits. This looks about right. And that sounds very good. If I want to zoom in here, I can actually make this loop even more perfect by zooming in, creating new warp markers on each individual hit that looks to be a little bit off, and thereby creating an absolutely perfect loop. I can zoom in very tight and create my warp markers right on the loop, and I can pull back a little bit if I need to, or push forward. Let's add another drum loop here and take a look at this one. Now here you can see the problem is that I've got a blank space at the beginning and at the end of the loop. So I'm going to select my warp markers, and I'm going to drag up to the beginning, zoom in to make sure that it's spot on, and I'm going to do the same thing with the end of my loop file, again visually lining up the hits. Now this one lines up a little bit better. I'm going to click play. And that sounds about right. I'm going to go ahead and add this synth loops file here. Now this is actually 2 loops in one audio file. And I'm going to use warp markers to create 2 individual loops from these 2 different loop files. So here's what I've got going on here. So let's start by working with the first loop. I'm going to grab my end marker, my end warp marker, and I'm going to grab my beginning warp marker, and I'm going to move those here and play back. Now as you can see, Live is interpreting this as being at about 385 beats per minute, and that is obviously not something that I want to work with, so I'll just quickly cut the time in half by clicking this button here, the halftime button. And I can cut it in half again. Now as we learned earlier, I'm actually cutting the tempo in half in relation to the session tempo, so when I cut it in half it actually speeds up the loop, and when I double the tempo it actually slows the loop down. Well, that sounds a little closer to what I want. Let's hear that with a drum loop. Now this is still not in time, and I think the reason for that is that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hits, and I'm in 4/4 time. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the end marker here and move it to the end of the 4th note event, and let's try that out. That's a lot closer. Let's cut that in half again. Now I can also zoom in here and create new warp markers, one for each hit, and adjust the start point of each hit. Again, this is great for micro editing, and that's a lot better. I'm going to also go here and check out my different available algorithms, and I'm going to stick with the tones algorithm for now. Let's stop that, and let's add this AIF file again to the session, and this time we're going to work with the second set. So that's pretty much in time right away. I could also speed it up or slow it down significantly. Let's see what we've got going on for algorithms here. You see, in this case, the texture algorithm is creating some very nice overtones. Let's go with that and lower the pitch. Again, I can move in here, create new warp markers, and create rhythmic variations. But let's actually do this on my drum loop so you can get a better idea of exactly how this can work. So along with actually using warp markers to fix imperfect loops, you can use warp markers to create interesting variations on the rhythms in your loops. So these are just some of the uses that you'll find for working with warp markers in Ableton Live.